Do you think the price of XRP can reach about $100? If your answer is no, then I really want you to listen to this really slowly and carefully and multiple times and ask this question again. If Quant can actually go from $1 to $440 with the partnership of banks, that's 580 banks in one region, then why can't XRP move to $100 in CBDC era while they are working with more than a dozen central banks? So this is not one region, and this is in CBDC era. In a CBDC era, you are looking for central banks to issue tokens, unlike the corporate banks. So if the partnership with the corporate banks can push you this much, imagine when the non-disclosure agreements are done and you get the information out in the public, what will be the price of this asset? Now, you can say that's speculation. Let me show you something. Here in a document from the IMF, they talk about unstable coins, about the stable coins. Look at the title. It's actually really intriguing. Why? Because in the same institution, when they actually use the word stable coin, this is really interesting. Read that. Solutions. What solutions? Payment providers. Great. That's the topic which we are discussing. Solutions that leverage stable coins. Again, stable coins for fast and inexpensive cross-border payments have also grown recently. Now, which stable coin are they really talking about? Do you think it's a stable coin like this? Or do you think it's a stable coin which they are highlighting, which is actually a payment mechanism? This is that citation. Stellar and Ripple. This is what they're pointing us towards. This is the citation 16, and this is what they are talking about in that point. Now, remember, this document is from International Monetary Fund when they talk about multi-currency exchange platform. Now, you can step back into different segment of the market like this one from Infosys, where they actually give you the right perspective, saying cross-border business-to-business payments will get a lot of attention. And we expect many new players, such as Ripple, competing against the conventional correspondence banking model to actually come out with much better solution, right? So they actually put it this way: much better operational processes and liquidity management. Now, yeah, you can come out and say, what about JPM's Onyx? They are also getting, real partnerships. They are also working with central banks. Why won't they succeed and Ripple succeed at the same time in this world of this era in CBDC mechanism world? Because on the payment side, you have a lot more happening. And that's where I'm actually taking you towards next. But understand, if this stands true, the current price of this asset is going to be a surprise for a lot of individuals. Because if you're here just because someone is speculating that this is going to $10,000 from, 0.38, then you're in the wrong place. But if you really think this asset can do 100x or 1000x because of the fundamentals, now you are here in the right place. You are starting to dig deeper to understand what this is all about. All of these are documented. From corporate banks to IMF to World Bank, you are looking through everything. This particular one is actually from Hedera, a competitor. And this document is clearly about central bank digital currencies, nothing else. They go through a lot of different projects, including Ether, right? They look at Hyperledger, Hedera. They go through a lot of different things. And one key element here to understand is when they actually give you the narrative of who they are working with, others actually give you a lot of different names, right? When you're looking for consensus, they're literally giving you Australia, Korea, Hong Kong, a lot of different names. And for Ripple, it's only Bhutan and Palau. So they are already in this document highlighting now they are working with more than a dozen of central banks. But they haven't named it here. So imagine what are the other central banks which are not named here. You can speculate a lot. But that's why I'm saying you, if IMF is giving you this terminology for XRP in this document where they talk about the Forex, that is going to be big. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Yes, crypto market is still there, testing around $21,000 to $22,000 Bitcoin and slowly trying to push higher. We do see a lot of other coins running higher. We do see some of them correcting. But the real big question for the day is, can XRP really do 100x from here? Now that's just close to $40. We are now close to 40 cents. So yeah, that makes sense. But from that 100x, can it really go to 3 digits? And if so, why would that happen in the market, right? When you're coming into these documents and it's actually clearly giving you an idea of what they are talking about, this is not something back from 2015-16. Now you do have older documents which actually suggest like, okay, this is happening. Now, yeah, agreed. But what we are looking at right now is how things are evolving in the same space, not in a different area. Here they're talking about the payments, and here this is literally from payments world, right? The experts in that arena talking. And when we are listening to them, they're clearly giving you the idea, leveraging Ripple, a PNC commercial client in the US, receiving a payment from an overseas buyer. Now understand, even though this is positive, look at the narrative here. Client in the US, a different country, receiving a payment from an overseas buyer, different country. So you are talking about cross-border payments. Fine. Now, why do I actually think Ripple has an advantage in this instead of, JPM? JPM is a bank in US. And the way US is looking at payments right now does not make any sense. Meaning they actually give you this. Now, this is from New York Fed. And if this is the narrative of Federal Reserve Bank from US is giving you, then most likely, the other central banks, other country, the politicians and all others, they really don't want to be in this one. Because they give you the idea that we can use this network to do economic sanctions against other country. That is surprising because we have already seen how other countries take that in, how they digest that. They really don't want to be imposed with all these sanctions just because you are using a mutual platform which can be controlled by US or any other Western nation, right? Do you think China and Russia and other big players are actually going to be in that ecosystem? I really don't think so. And that's why this can really happen. They can do all these tests. But when the real central bank digital currencies are going to come on one platform, it won't be a platform like this which can be controlled directly by US government. Right? JPM is a US bank, so automatically the governments can actually really do a lot in that. So what they are demonstrating here is interoperability and the cloud infrastructure, which other infrastructure also possess. So when you go back into these, here they are giving you a clear perspective. The traditional model is getting high competition. Agreed. Now you actually go into the page number 3, and here they're actually talking clearly about the payment innovation. Now, inside that, they do go through many different layers. But what's interesting here is when they actually talk about international real-time payments, micropayments, and others, this is the wordings they're using. One leading player in this is Ripple Lab. Ripple provides global financial settlement solution to enable the world to exchange value like it's already exchanging information. That's Internet of Value. Now, this is coming from Infosys, not from a Ripple document. Ripple solutions lower the total transaction cost, enabling banks to do all what they need to do in payments, right? That is huge. Because what they're talking about here is about the payments. And now it gets a little bit confusing when you come to the bottom here talking about some areas where we are seeing most interest are cryptocurrency and distributed ledger. And they give you Ripple blockchain, okay, the crypto inside that is XRP, we understand that. Then security. And you get this here. That does not look good, right? Whether it feels like a conspiracy or not, Ripple is also working with this infrastructure too. So if CBDCs are going to be on one platform and they're all going to use biometrics, the negative sides should also be considered. But as an investor, you are looking for opportunity and you are clearly looking for information which is in the market but not digested by the majority, because that's how you really know what's going to happen and you're positioning yourself for that future. It may take 6 months, it may take 6 years, who knows? But this is the reality. Read this. A survey of nearly 700 global payment professionals across multiple industries in 22 countries for Ripple's blockchain in payments. A report found that 18% of the respondents are in protection for blockchain-based payments. Okay, you actually get to see this. Now they name the competitors, JPM, Visa, Stella, you get all these. Inside that, when they talk about the payment mechanism, the stable coins as they term, you actually don't see the JPM coin there from IMF. You see Ripple, you see Stella. Now, that's something, which we all have to think about, because this is a document from IMF taking us through cross-border payments. And right now, they are clearly giving you the narrative of how slow and expensive and risky it is and what the future looks like. And if that future is using this, fast, inexpensive cross-border payments using stable coins like Ripple and Stella, okay, now that makes a lot of sense, because right now it clearly gives you the understanding that this infrastructure is working with a lot of different central banks. Great. Now, as I told, this document is from Hedra. That's a competitor in the space. It actually gives you this. While other providers like Prosper, us, and Ripple leverage their own infrastructure layer. So you get different solutions out there. Some of them have their own infrastructure. Now, inside this document, as you go and dig in, you see a lot of areas where this infrastructure is named. And this is about central bank digital currencies. Now, understand, right now, we are entering the world in a way that all of them are trying to be on that front foot for central bank digital currency. And that's where, this narrative won't stand. Maybe 1 or 2 countries will actually get on this. But I really don't think China, Russia, India, the BRICS nations, they are actually now expanding. I don't think they're actually going to be in this narrative. Now look at the world, the population, where the investments are moving. That really makes sense to see next 3 years, next 5 years, this is going to happen. Now, inside the same documents, look at this. They are working with Ripple, Hydra, Prosperous, all different groups, and this is published in Hydra's website. So once you actually get the idea, okay, the area in which Ripple is giving you direct understanding, it can be a little bit biased. It's directly coming from them. Fine. But still, we actually get to see clearly that they are working with more than a dozen central banks. Fine. Now, that's key idea, but what's the link in between that? So we go back to areas where Ripple documents have already shown us that they are working with different central banks. So we actually understand that Bank of Canada is in here and they are talking through what's needed. There is a gap in the conversation between central bank decision makers and tech solution providers. While providers focus on what is possible under optimal conditions, central bankers worry about the risk and adverse consequence. There is also a disparity in the level of conversation. Decision makers think about requirements at a business, policy and regulatory level, whereas providers describe their functionality at a technical level. So yes, there is a misconnect in between what the central bankers are looking at and what the reality is, because that's what these tech providers are giving. Central banks are not on it right now completely, but you see a lot of people, institutions who are actually doing payments already using this mechanism. Now, as we came through this, they are working with this number and they only announced these two. What would be the rest? Because it's not only them in this space, we understand that, and 40 to 50 central banks of what we are looking at for the total players in CBDC era, which is going to be massive. And inside that, if Ripple is going through this much, you now know a big volume is going to be moved through that. And they all need an infrastructure which is going to be interoperable. So you come down looking at the end-to-end solution, you get this there. That's one of the examples given. Then you come lower, you look at the technology partners. And yeah, there's a lot of different projects done by different central banks. You get all of that talking and they actually give you a clear idea of, the examples include Accenture, who worked with this. This was one of the project. This was one of the pilot. We went through that before. So we know, even though they don't name it directly, what's the infrastructure being used at the bottom. That kind of gives you more details about how interoperability is becoming so important. Then you come down here. For example, MIT's digital currency initiative has worked with Federal Reserve. Then former partnerships with Bank of Canada and Bank of England. Okay, that is really important. We kind of get more clarity about other central banks who have not announced what they're going to do next in CBDC, but we get to see what they are doing from some time. And if they're already spending more and more time in CBDC and they are ready to launch this, okay, most of the works which they have done before, they're not going to dump that and move on to a different infrastructure. They will actually go into one layer which they are comfortable with. And it's not only about them, right? They are all looking at the US and the way they react into this ecosystem. They all don't want to be controlled and sanctioned like this clearly, because they use this as a toolkit. So this is a payment mechanism, but the government here actually want to use it as a toolkit. So that's one of the primary reasons I personally think this may not work in multiple different ways for different central banks, especially if you are in Europe, if you are in China, if you are in Russia. Any different countries may not agree on that. Now we go look at different documents. All of them actually give us a clear understanding. And these institutions are taking time to really digest what this network is about, how things are evolving, what's the total supply, and what they are looking ahead to. Right? When they are giving you bridging fiat currencies, the use of blockchain and here cryptocurrency to enable this, they are actually talking about Ripple and blockchain. Now, this is old, so you actually get the X rapid and the process happening there. Right now, it's ODL, on demand liquidity, which actually includes everything together. One of the primary use is XRP ledger. That's where the on demand liquidity means. And that's how it actually works. So even before X Rapid, they use this terminology in many documents. But just to clarify that this is not crypto, this is actually about providing liquidity on real time. They put this name, ODL. On-demand liquidity means quicker payments, no more tied-up capital, which is highlighting the nostro-vostro things. So if you really see someone working on something and being consistent over a long time and getting this amount of attention from the central bankers, IMF, World Bank, United Nations, you really have to think like, okay, what's happening behind the scene when they are really not announcing next 5 to 10 central banks, which can be huge. And if I'm a normal common human being, so I would argue that in that next 10, 15 central banks which are going to be announced, there's going to be 2 or 3 big players, if not more. So if that is the case, imagine what the price of this asset can actually do. Now, there are competitors in the space, 100%. There are possibilities that short term this can actually drop, come back to 0.35, test this range and then bounce. So if you are focused on the short-term price fluctuation of this asset, the long-term price appreciation, which may actually look something like this or even better, will be missed because you are focusing more on the short term. But as an investor in the market, if you are going to wait for next year, 2 or 5 for this to materialize, then you are literally here in the market looking at different opportunities where you can enter into different assets and go through price appreciation while this cycle is running higher. Because this cycle is showing you it has a lot of room to the upside and it is starting to bounce into the next mode, the bullish mode. You see a lot of different assets doing this right now, starting to break through different levels as Bitcoin tests 22,000. And that's where we are going to test through different assets to see which asset is breaking higher. If it's breaking higher, what's its target? Because some asset may have short-term targets and the long-term resistance together where it can slow down. So that becomes an important point if you are in this way. And if you're already in a trade, you are looking for your targets, where to exit, this can be a solution. You can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below, where we go through all these details on a regular basis so that you have a better understanding of the market of all these assets. If you have 10 assets in your portfolio, you only have to focus on that. But if you're looking for adding 1 or 2 more, now these kind of posts really becomes helpful to make a well-educated guess. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. There can be another bankruptcy. Maybe the price drops another 10-20%. But if not, if we are not waiting for the world to end tomorrow, then we are trying to get more and more information from the market, which is well educated, so that we can take proper judgment. So guys, if you received value for your time, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.